There is a natural progression that every person goes on when they're choosing to purchase a product or a service. And this is true in the world of construction. Today, we're going to talk about that natural progression with my returning guest, Wayne Mullins, the CEO of Ugly Mug Marketing. It's a natural progression that you can help your clients along as you tune in your marketing messages and really focus on a very important task: turning strangers into friends, friends into clients, clients into evangelists. And that's exactly what we're going to chat about here today. You're going to get some insights into how your marketing should be working, both on the front end of your marketing efforts to attract clients, and then on the back end of your marketing efforts to keep clients and to turn them into those evangelists. And you'll discover during the interview why getting more evangelists of your business is such an essential part of building a long-term successful company. Feel free to share this interview with anyone you think who may benefit from it. Feel free to give us a rating or a review wherever you get your podcasts. And thanks for listening to Construction Genius. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Wayne, welcome back again to Construction Genius.
Thank you so much, Eric. Looking forward to our conversation today.
I consider you a great resource for practical marketing advice. And I know that my clients and my listeners often spend a lot of money on marketing, a lot of energy. They want to be able to attract the right clients and keep them to their company. But let me ask you this. In your experience, why doesn't marketing work?
That is the million-dollar question when it comes to marketing. Is there's that old adage or old saying, half my marketing doesn't work. I just don't know which half it is. What I would say is this, that the reason most people's marketing doesn't work is because they violate some very natural laws. They violate some natural psychological laws. So when we think about marketing, the whole goal of marketing is to make selling not needed, right? So when we market well, when we market our products, our services well, what we do, we don't have to sell because the marketing has done the job of the selling. So they come to us ready to make the decision to move forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I tell you, that's quite a thought there, to make selling unnecessary.
Yeah. And that is the ultimate goal of marketing. And where so many people get in trouble is they think of marketing as pieces and components.
Yeah.
Right. So we're going to do some television, we're going to do some radio, we're going to do trade publications, whatever it may be. They think of pieces and components instead of thinking marketing is this system that should be designed to make selling, the need to have people convince other people, unnecessary.
Interesting. You know what I find fascinating about it is because, people buy from people that they know, trust, and like. And I started this podcast 100 and whatever episodes ago. And what's interesting to me is when people contact me and they say, Eric, I'm contacting you through your podcast. It's like they know me as a friend when they've never spoken to me before. And that's like, it's kind of weird to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's exactly it.
Yeah.
So you're building that relationship. You're building that know, liking, and trusting through the podcast. It's doing that job for you. So those people, if we analyze your business, Eric, and we said, okay, you get 2 inquiries. One has never heard your podcast before. The other one has, which is quote unquote easier to convince to use your services.
Yep.
Right. And so when we think about our marketing, instead of thinking of pieces and components, we must first think of it as this entire system. Yep. It's all of these various pieces and components. But the problem is we can think of it that way. But if we don't think of what's the outcome, this system that we're creating, this marketing thing that we're creating, what is the actual outcome that we're expecting from it?
Okay, so let's explore that a little bit. Earlier, you said that there's these natural psychological laws. You want to hit on that first? How do you want to approach this?
Yeah, absolutely. So one basic definition that I've heard of marketing, and I don't know where I heard it, so I'm stealing it from somebody. So if you know who said it, let me know because I need to know this. But he defined marketing, or she defined marketing as your ability to attract and keep a customer And then the second part of that is that marketing is nothing more than psychology and math. Psychology and math. So the psychology side is the knowing, the liking, trusting. How do we convince people to know, like, and trust us? And the math part is the important part, because we don't know if our marketing's working if math isn't involved in the equation. And that's why so many people end up frustrated with their marketing, because they don't adequately track. They don't hold each dollar that's flowing into that system accountable. And that is a marketer's number one job. It's to hold every single dollar accountable. What ROI did that dollar produce? How do I track it?
Okay, excellent. Now you have this idea of the natural progression for how someone engages with your company, and those barriers to making the sale ultimately, or to engaging in a relationship, a business relationship, are taken away. Can you start to walk us through that natural progression?
Yeah, absolutely, Eric. So the way I like to explain it is this. So think of an old round analog clock hanging on the wall. So circular clock hanging on the wall. It's got the minute hand, the hour hand, and maybe a second hand on there, right? So we got the clock in our mind. We see it up on the wall. At the 12 o'clock spot on the clock, we have what we would call strangers. So strangers are anyone and everyone in our marketplace that we believe could be a good fit for our product, our service, for what we do, right? Then over at the 3 o'clock spot, we have what we would call friends. So the difference between a stranger and a friend is this, that a friend now knows about us. We've somehow gotten our name in front of them. They know about us and they like us a little bit. In other words, they don't hate us, right? So there's a chance that we can keep moving them through this equation if they like us. Now, down at the 6 o'clock spot on our clock, we have customers or clients. This is where the money changes hands. This is where they sign the contract. The biggest factor in moving people from a friend into a customer or client is the magic word trust. Trust is required to make that move. No one's going to pull out their wallet. No one's going to pull out the pen and sign the paper if they don't trust you're going to do what you say you're going to do. Now, the last one on the clock, and then I'll kind of work backwards and explain a little bit more of these. Over at the 9 o'clock spot on the clock is what we would call evangelist. Evangelists for your company, for your products, for your values, the mission that you're on. These are evangelists. Now, here's the interesting thing. If we have evangelists for our company out there telling their friends, telling their colleagues about us, it bypasses the whole 12 o'clock part of the clock. Because what happens, it draws a line straight across from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock, because they're telling their friends, they're telling their acquaintances about us, about the value that we bring.
Excellent. Okay. So let's walk through that in a little more detail. Let's begin with the strangers. How do I identify which strangers are for me, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So by default, we serve certain size clientele, right? So we may specialize in certain areas. So I'm speaking construction. So whether that's commercial, whether that's industrial, whether that's municipal, whatever the areas. And then within that, there are size projects that we typically can handle, right? So, we typically do projects between 10 and 50 million or 100 and 300, whatever the numbers are. So we then know, based on who we serve, based on the size of project, that provides some field of view for us. We have an idea of who out there in the world, so to speak, in our marketplace that we serve, can afford, want, needs the services that we provide. So that becomes the stranger field out there for us to target. And what I would do is I would challenge people to find 100. Find 100. That's the goal. If you can identify 100 ideal clients for you to work with, that's all you need. That is all you need. 100 dream clients to work with is all you need to identify.
Okay. Excellent. So then we're at 12 o'clock. We want to get to 3, where the strangers become friends. What's going on there between the 12 and the 3?
Number one is simply they have to know about us. So we've got our 100. Let's just use the 100 as the analogy. We have to somehow get our name, get our message in front of those 100 people. Now, there's a lot of different ways we could do that. One is we could pick up the phone and call. 100 people is not that large of a number to pick up and call. It could be done. We could use direct mail. We could use networking events that attract those type of people. Again, getting our name in front of that 100 is step number 1. They have to know about us. Number 2 is they have to like us. So their values, our values need to align. Right. And that is the second part of that whole equation, moving them from strangers to friends. But here's where I think most people get frustrated frustrated with their marketing is when we think of marketing, we think of we're going to go do the thing. So run the ad in the magazine or whatever it may be. Yep. And we by default assume it's going to magically move people from strangers to pulling out the wallet or signing the piece of paper. Yes. And so we're too demanding of each individual piece of our marketing. We're expecting too much. We have false expectations. And so if I take this down and I think about this linearly or progressionally as people move around this clock, I have to think, okay, what can I do? What's the one thing I can do to get people to know about? Right. Okay, great. I've got that figured out. What's the next one thing that I can do to convince them to like me, to show them that our values align? So again, now I go from one piece that I'm hoping moves people from stranger to pulling out the wallet to now I've got a marketing piece that's going to get them to know about me. I've got a marketing piece that's going to get them or show them that our values are in alignment. So now they're a friend. And then the next question becomes, what are the pieces that are needed to build that trust? Again, all too often we assume that it's one piece and we're done. But what I would say is, and that I think most people listening intuitively know, that trust is the huge factor in this, right? Mm-hmm. Trust is the distinguishing factor often between who gets the project, who doesn't get the project. Mm-hmm. Do they trust that you're going to do what you say you're going to do? Mm-hmm. And so what are the pieces needed to build trust? Not just one piece, pieces needed to build that trust.
Okay. So let me just hit on a couple of things here. I think it's very interesting where we get frustrated with our marketing because we set too high of an expectation for what one piece is going to achieve. And it seems also that we don't focus in a particular piece of marketing on a particular goal. Did I hear that right?
That's absolutely correct. That is it.
So then I should set a goal, a clear goal for each one of my marketing pieces.
That's exactly right. And you see this framework, this natural progression framework, it's the natural way people make buying decisions. It's not like we went out and just created this magical thing. All we did was we stepped back and we said, okay, what are the core components of, every single person when they make a buying decision? They have to know about it. They have to like the product, the service, the people, and they have to trust that it's going to do what they say it's going to do. Right. And so when we step back and we look at it in that perspective, we now can say, okay, what are the pieces that we can assign to each of those components to move people down around the natural progression?
Okay. So how many pieces of marketing do you think I need to come up with here? Like that may be a tough question for you to answer.
What I would say is this, Eric, you can have one piece that does a couple of components, right?
Okay.
So we could have a piece that we put in a trade publication with the intent of getting people to know about us, to like us somehow, and to trust us, right?
Okay, so let's stop there. Let's say I'm doing that in a trade publication. What type of a piece might I think of putting into a trade publication to get someone to know me and to trust me?
So I'm going to flip the question back to you, which is this. What would you need to see or hear that would communicate those two things to you, right? So the liking piece, if you were to show this piece to somebody else, ask yourself, what in this ad would convince someone that our values are in alignment, right? That we stand behind what we do, right? So I'm leaning into the trust here. What are the elements? What are the pieces? What are the components that would communicate trust, build trust? But here's the thing I want to point out, and it's a very important point. When I have one ad and I'm trying to get that one ad to do all three of those things, I've now diluted the power of my ad. I've diluted it because I'm having it do three different things, right? And so that is why our advertising and marketing isn't as powerful as it could be, because we expect, again, too much of one little piece.
Yep. And I think I can just hear the narrative, right? The narrative in my mind, if it's my company, is here I am, I'm writing the check for a bunch of money for this marketing effort. And so therefore I expect to get some money back as a result. And you're saying to hold each dollar accountable. And yet I also have to temper my expectations because this particular dollar may just move them from no to trust, not necessarily no to give me some money client. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. But what I would say is this, let's look at that budget. And let's just say that the piece in the trade publication, you run a full page ad.
Right.
It's $20,000. I'm just making up a number here, $20,000. What if instead we said, okay, the trade publication comes out once a quarter. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take that 20 and we're going to divide it now into 3 separate ads. one per quarter.
Right.
And we're going to ad number one is to know about us.
Right.
Maybe we just slap our name and logo on there, as big as we can get it for that third of the budget. The next month it's all about liking. So again, we're looking for things that are going to align those values.
Right.
And then the last quarter, we're going to say, okay, what are the things we need to do to build trust here?
Right. Okay. And so again, my mind thinking as a construction CEO, I'm thinking, well, how long do I need to do this?
Well, the answer is this, Eric. Most people who are thinking that thought are still writing the checks for marketing.
Yep.
So you're not going to stop marketing because you're frustrated by the fact you don't know if your marketing is working or not. Right. You're still got a line item on your P&L that's marketing.
Yeah.
The money's still being spent. The question is, are you willing to do what's necessary to hold that money accountable? It's a yes or no. It's not a right or wrong. It's a yes or no.
Okay. So let me ask you then, how do I hold that dollar that's earlier in the cycle accountable?
You hold it accountable in that what you're trying to accomplish with that dollar is now not tied to the very bottom of that. It's now tied to moving the needle.
Yes.
So if that is maybe getting people to know about us, is we want to send them to our website because once they hit our site, we can now build that relationship further. So ran the ad was driving people to a specific web page.
Yes.
I can now track, okay, we spent $5,000. How many people went through to our website? I'm holding it accountable for that function, that one function.
Okay. So that's where it's interesting because you almost have to lower your expectations, but then you have to focus your expectations at the same time to a particular action that helps you then to track the ROI of the marketing effort.
Right. That's exactly right.
Okay. So from strangers to friends to clients to evangelists. And then if you get the evangelists, you bypass the stranger portion of it and begin to generate some momentum there.
That's exactly right. So, if you were to survey your audience, Eric, and say, where do your best clientele come from? Where do your best customers come from? There's a very good chance that word of mouth, referrals, is going to be near the top of that list.
Yes.
Right? Somebody talked to somebody. I heard your name from somebody, got your info from somebody. And here's the interesting thing. We hear that all the time, but we naturally assume there's nothing that we can do to alter that. There's nothing that we can do to be intentional about that. And what I would tell you is that's a false belief. That's the wrong narrative. That's the wrong story that we're telling ourselves.
Okay. So how can we be intentional? Give us a little bit more on that then.
Sure. So step number one is look at your budget. What percentage of your budget is spent on the side of the clock over here that's going from strangers to friends and then friends to customers versus from customers to evangelists? What percentage of your budget is spent there? That will show you how intentional you are at creating those evangelists.
So let's talk about that a little bit more because this is fundamental here. How then can I market my current clients to turn them into evangelists?
So there's 2 or 3 steps here that you need to think through. Step number 1 is, what do they reasonably have the right to expect in this interaction, right? So they're customers now, they're clients now. What do they reasonably have the right to expect? So in other words, a reasonable person would expect X, Y, and Z out of this project.
Yep.
What are those things? And until you write those things down, you don't know. You're just flying by the seat of your pants. What we recommend people do is you take out a sheet of paper and down the middle of the sheet of paper, down the center of the sheet of paper, you write down what they should reasonably expect. In other words, we expect there to be variance in the time frame of this project of X.
Yeah.
We expect the cost variance to be X.
Yes.
Then what we recommend people do is you come back on the left side of that and you lower that expectation. What would a lower expectation look like in each of these categories?
Are you talking about a measurement or an experience, subjectively or objectively or both?
It could be both. It could be either or, depending on the question you're looking at, the expectation you're looking at.
Okay.
And then on the right side, what you want to write down is what would it take to exceed that middle line?
Yep.
What would it take to exceed that center line?
Yes.
And here's the thing. Oftentimes, it doesn't take much at all other than intention to exceed those expectations. It doesn't take much to send a handwritten thank you note. It doesn't take much to text somebody, to call somebody. It doesn't take much to do these little things that go above and beyond, right?
Okay.
Again, we're not talking huge leaps here. We're talking about getting clear about what's reasonably expected,
right?
And then being intentional each of those ways to exceed those expectations.
Excellent. Okay, so you mentioned a couple of examples there, a handwritten thank you note, a text. Can you give me some more examples that you've seen that people have used to turn clients into evangelists?
Yeah, absolutely. So milestones are a huge one. So when we think of milestones, what are we doing to celebrate milestones?
Okay.
Are we celebrating milestones? So every project's going to have milestones. What are we doing to celebrate those?
Yep.
Again, we live in what I would call an experiential economy.
Right.
So people love experiences. So why not make it? And I know we're dealing, in the construction industry.
Sure.
And so, we often think that experiences don't work the same way there, but they do. So we need to think through what are some things that we can do to celebrate those milestones.
Okay. So go ahead, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so when the project gets to a certain phase, completes a certain phase, celebrate it. Buy the client pizza, buy the, whatever it may be, celebrate it.
Right.
We're as excited as you are that we've reached this phase.
Yeah. Okay. So it's very interesting though, because we don't often think of these activities as marketing, but you're saying that this is marketing.
This is marketing because we have the fundamental belief that marketing is your ability to both attract and to keep clients. And
Excellent.
When you're intentional on the keeping side, you will create evangelists.
I see.
And when you create evangelists, you almost make this whole side of attracting where you don't have to do anything. You don't have to touch it because your evangelists are doing that work for you.
So why, when you write down in the middle of the paper what they should reasonably expect, why do you do the lower the expectations exercise? I'm just curious.
Yeah, great question. Because the reality is that we as owners, as CEOs, often believe that we are already exceeding expectations. And by pulling out a sheet of paper and writing this down, what we will discover most often is that we are often under reasonable expectations. There's this huge gap. There's these studies done all over. There's this huge gap between what we believe we deliver in terms of expectations and what they perceive we deliver in terms of expectations. So by forcing us to look downward, we can then look at the project as it progresses and be truthful with ourselves about, am I even hitting reasonable expectations? And what I can tell you from doing this with clients in a lot of industries is the answer is often, I'm leaning too far to the left.
Interesting. Okay. But what's interesting though, is that to exceed expectations, your contention is that it doesn't really take that much to do that.
Exactly right. It takes intention. Intention is the key word. And the other thing that's interesting is customer expectations are like an escalator. They're always moving down. So what I do today for someone that was surprising, tomorrow becomes expected. Right. And so client expectations are always this escalator moving down. And so it's our job to constantly be looking for new ways to exceed, to surprise, to, bring those experiences to those clients.
That sounds challenging.
It is challenging, but it's all about the simple word of intention. That is what it's about.
So then does that mean, let's say I buy this reasoning here and I want to go and I really want to work on turning my clients into evangelists. Does that mean I should perhaps start small? I shouldn't send everyone to Maui right away just to manage that escalator that you were talking about?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So it's not about necessarily big or small.
Okay.
It's about expected or unexpected.
Okay.
That's the distinction. So you start with the made up analogy of Maui, right?
Yeah, right.
You do that after a few years, Maui becomes expected.
Right.
Right. So it's not about what are you going to do to one up Maui? It's about what are you going to do that's unexpected, that now exceeds that expectation, because you keep doing that long enough, people begin to expect. That becomes the expectation, even though it's nowhere in the contract.
So that means then that the team has to get creative on what the unexpected is.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Excellent. Okay, so we started with this idea of the natural progression from stranger to friend, from client to evangelist, and then hopefully as a result of getting enough evangelists, you skip the stranger part and start generating more of the friends. What can I do then to immediately get into action to take this concept and to get some traction moving forward?
What I would say is take a sheet of paper, draw a clock on it, right? Draw a circle at the top, write strangers, write friends over 3 o'clock, write customers, and then write evangelists. And then what I would ask you to do is go back in there and list out in each of those areas, each of those gaps between those words, what specifically are you currently doing in each of those gaps? Then what I would say is take that, draw a circle down below it, do the same thing again, but this time say, what could or should we be doing if we were going to be intentional in each of those areas? And so it's about what we're looking at is we're looking at the way people naturally flow through the buying cycle. And the evangelist side, although it sounds like it's kind of this made up thing, what we know to be true is that when we exceed expectations, when we go above and beyond for our clients, for our customers, they are going to tell other people. And the way we know that's because they're doing it now, right? Your best clients, your best customers, they're already telling others about you.
Yes.
The difference is we are now going to be intentional. We we're going to list out things that we can and should be doing on that side of the equation. Not going to leave it to happenstance, circumstance, whatever that word may be. We're going to be intentional about it.
Excellent. So I analyze what am I doing to get people from strangers to friends to clients to evangelists. And then I do a second clock. And what should I be doing in order to get that moving quickly or to get that moving in a good way?
That's it. That's correct.
Excellent. Excellent. Wayne, these strategies are super helpful. They're super simple and clear. How can people find you if they would like to get further information on the work that you do in terms of helping folks with their marketing?
Sure, Eric. The easiest way is just on our website, and that's uglymugmarketing.com. On there, we've got links to our social channels, email addresses, phone numbers, all that good information is there on the website.
That's awesome. Awesome. Wayne, once again, extremely practical. Hey, listen, if I can understand it, I know that there's some good nuggets in here. So, dude, I really appreciate it. Thank you once again for coming on Construction Genius.
Thank you so much, Eric. I enjoyed our time together.
Awesome. Today's episode was brought to you by the Construction Conclave. If you as a construction leader would like to develop your skills and get involved in a community of like-minded construction professionals who are focused on building healthy teams, profitable projects, and long-term successful businesses, then the Construction Conclave is for you. It's a private, invitation-only group of construction leaders that are focused on developing their leadership skills. We do training every single month online that looks at how to become a better leader in a very practical, straightforward way. We also have other events that build community and camaraderie so that you can associate with others who are interested in developing their skills as leaders. If you'd like more information and to see if you qualify for participating in the conclave, feel free to reach out to me, eric@ericanderton.com. Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes, share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit, and thanks again for listening.